Hi, good evening. Welcome to today's session, which is on education technology, and this is part of our Enable Week at Thomas Pocklington Trust. My name is Emma Cruickshank, and I am the head of Children, Young People and Families for Thomas Pocklington Trust. We're really glad that you could join us today. We've got an absolutely great set of panellists that are here to answer your questions about education technology. The webinar is going to look at how technology can support people with a vision impairment within education. We've had quite a lot of questions sent in already, so we're going to try and answer as many of those in the hour session that we've got. If you do have any more questions and you want to add them, please add them into the question box. And if we don't get a chance to answer those tonight, what we'll do is we'll share the answers with the recording of tonight's session with you after tonight. So without further ado, obviously, I would like to introduce you to our panellists. So our panellists are just going to give you a little bit of an update about where they're from and what they do. So I'm going to start off with Martin Roberts. Hi, Martin.
Hi, Emma. It's good to be here with everybody. My name is Martin Roberts, and my job title is blindness sales and support. More sales these days, though, for Humanware Europe Limited. I've been with Humanware for longer than I care to think about now, and I predominantly concentrate on the braille products and some of the less visual products that we do. I travel around the country, normally have a guide dog waiting on another one, so I travel independently. Obviously, that's changed a little bit with the corona situation we're in. So I'm doing a lot of work from home, but we are still going out into, we're trying to make it COVID safe when we do. You heard a big sigh behind me. That was my wife's guide dog. So yeah, I'm Martin Roberts. Good to be here.
Thanks, Martin. And I didn't hear a big sigh, but thanks for telling us it's your wife's guide dog. Thank you. So next, I'd like to introduce you to Darren Pascal.
Hi, Emma. Hi, everybody. Thank you. It's good to be here. So, and really good that you've been able to come along this evening. I'm Darren Paskell. I am from Thomas Pocklington Trust. I'm a technology information champion. And so it's kind of my role really to be keeping abreast of all of the latest developments in access technology for blind and partially sighted people. And I'm also responsible for the website that we have, which is Vital Tech, which aims to offer impartial guidance around assistive technology for blind and partially sighted people here in the UK.
Thanks, Darren. It's great to have you on board today. So next, I'd like to introduce you to Stacey Scott. Hi, Stacey.
Hi, Emma. Good evening, everyone. My name is Stacey Scott, and I currently work for the RNIB. I manage the Bookshare service, and I am the strategic relationships person for our publishers. So that's across Bookshare and reading services. In addition to that, I typically manage quite a few of our technology related projects as well. So things around Orbit Plus and Code Jumper and a few other bits and pieces as well.
That's great. Thanks a lot, Stacey. And next, I'd like to introduce Shiraz Ayub. Hi, Sharaz.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name's Sharaz. I work for Guide Dogs as a Special Education Support Officer. I work for Guide Dogs part-time, a couple of days a week, and the other 3 days I'm still working in a local authority as a Peri QTVI.
Great, thanks ever so much, Shiraz. And then last but by no means least, I'd like to introduce you to Stuart Lawler. Hi, Stuart.
Hi there, good evening everybody, and Emma, thank you for the chance to be here tonight. I'm Stuart Lawler. I'm from Sight and Sound Technology. As you'll probably hear, I'm not in the UK. I'm in Ireland, and I manage Sight and Sound Technologies operations over here in Ireland, but I'm also head of content creation for the company, so I'm responsible for developing a lot of our webinars and branded content and podcasts and stuff. Sight and Sound, of course, have been around for a very long time. I believe it's something like 41 years now. And we are passionate, I suppose, about all sorts of technology. My own speciality is, I guess, looking at a lot of the non-visual tech, in particular braille and screen reading, and really excited to be here with everybody at the session this evening.
That's great. Thanks everybody, and we're really glad that you could all join us, and obviously for those that have joined the webinar as well, thank you. I'm just going to let you know that we've got websites for all the attendees that are here today, all the panelists that are here, so we will share that out with you once we share the video as well. And we've got some additional websites that you might find quite helpful that look at education, healthcare plans, information and advice services as well. So if you've got any of those sort of additional questions, they might be useful for you to look at. So without further ado, I'm going to open up the questions to the panel. So any thoughts about the development of a whole page refreshable braille display, and when may we expect one on the market? So who wants to take that one?
There is one on the market.
Yeah, I was going to say that
The Canute.
The Canute's there at the moment. It's not maybe a whole page, but it is a display that will certainly allow you to read a book. And you wouldn't be carrying it around with you perhaps, but it's the first display of its kind, I think, that's commercially available. I could be wrong on that, Stuart, I'm not sure.
No, I think you're right. And also, I think it's a very interesting time for these multi-line braille terminals and this idea of the one-page braille terminal. And I know there's lots of other companies kind of exploring this, but the Canute is just wonderful. And Martin, you're correct in that, you know, it's not maybe the lightest thing to carry around, but it's the first version. I think they have big plans for its future. And I mean, I've kind of watched it as a product grow over probably three and a half years.
4 years, yeah.
Yeah, and it's really interesting to see how they have made it smaller and made it run faster and made it work with different types of file formats and made it a bit more compatible with other technology. So I think we're in a good place with that.
It sounds like a very quiet braille. It sounds like a very quiet braille printer. I hope I'm getting, you know, it's not the kind of thing that you would maybe. You know, it's more, I think I see it more of a kind of thing for home. In a classroom, it might be a little bit, you'd certainly draw attention to yourself. But if you want to read a book at home and you want the whole page and you're a fluent brailleist, I think that's the nearest you're going to get to it at the moment. Having said that, other companies are developing various tactile, and this is kind of happening majorly now. So I know there's a big American organization developing a tactile display, some kind of tactile display. Now, whether that's a full page or whether that's more for graphing and stuff, I'm not quite sure of.
And of course, for the kind of subjects like, you know, maths and music and science, this is going to be a game changer, because with single line braille technology, those things are inherently very difficult to do. You can do it, but you know, you are very limited. So I think the multi-line braille is very exciting.
That's great. Thanks, Martin. We've got a question here. It's not necessarily about education technology as such. I think it's quite relevant to ask the question, because obviously we've got a parent here who wants to start their child off really early. So we've got a parent of a 2-month-old baby, and they want to know what technology tools can they use at this age, or is there anything that you would recommend? So obviously, recommending is a little bit, we just need to be careful of, but if there's anything that you can think might be helpful at all.
Do you know what I'm just going to say about that? And it's not even technology, but it's just good for tactile things. It's things like shape sorters, you know, where you can have these big wooden blocks and pick them up in the different shapes, and pushing the shapes into the holes will actually help those fundamental key tactile skills.
Also textures is great as well for doing that. Various textures. And there are, toys that make noises, obviously, but I'm not aware of anything for that kind of age group that's been specifically designed for VI children. I think APH in the US, American Printing House, I think they do some stuff that maybe is, like your first braille letters and things like that. But you wouldn't probably be introducing them at 2 months or to 2 years old to most children. Having said that, everyone's different, everyone and it moves at different speeds. So
I think the fact that you are asking this question when your baby's just 2 months old is fantastic, and that fills me with a lot of confidence for their future, because I think that's half the battle is informing yourself and everyone about, you know, what you can have access to. So they're probably a little bit young for it at 2 months old, but I definitely agree with Stuart about getting as hands-on as possible. So you may know that Lego have just released their Lego braille blocks. So they are for about kids, I think about 4 years and up. So still a few years to go, but I think in that time it'll grow even more. And the idea to that is Lego have basically produced a load of bricks with braille on it and braille letters, and it's for children who are able to then learn while they play. So I think by the time your little one is 3 or 4 years old, there will be even more tactile resources that they can get their hands on.
I think for early years as well, I'd add that it's all about experience very early on.
yeah, true.
I think the more experience that a child has around them through sight, sound, smells, touch, taste, it really helps develop their experience going on further into life.
Yeah, spot on.
That's great, thanks, Sharaz, because I was just about to say anything that you would like to add. So you beat me to it there, and it's great that Stacey, you mentioned about the braille Lego, which obviously is a fantastic invention that we've seen come out this year. So yeah, so it's brilliant. And this is quite an interesting one. This is actually a QTVI, so qualified teacher with vision impaired. It's a person who actually has a vision impairment themselves. And what they're asking is, I would usually recommend Zoom text application and speech software for pupils with low vision. However, the newest ZT version does not work well when magnifying web browsers such as Firefox, Edge and Chrome. It only magnifies clearly on Internet Explorer, which is currently on reduced capacity and is due to become unsupported. What advice would you give me so I can pass this on to school staff and their IT teams?
I might just, Emma, if it's okay, I might just mention, coming on that first, just in relation to the Zoom text part of the question, I suppose. If that person would like to get in touch with us here at Sight and Sound, because we certainly have, it's not something, and I just checked with one of my colleagues today when I saw this question, it's not something we have seen with challenges magnifying, especially on Google Chrome and Edge. Now, I'm not sure about Firefox, but it's something we'd be very happy to follow up if there are any specifics, because it definitely should be okay. I
think the challenge can be when and it's I know money's tight, but I think it's really important, and I don't sell JAWS, but I'm a JAWS user as well as NVDA and everything else. I have to say I use everything else as well. But when you get a screen reader, if you don't keep the, I'm assuming because of the problems that maybe the license isn't up to date, and what can happen over time is that apps like web browsers will change and they will break the support for, because I know that Freedom and you know, Dolphin, they put a lot of effort into, you know, their updates to keep these things running smoothly. And I'd just be interested to find out if maybe the software's on the latest version. I think that's a fair thing to wonder.
Okay, yeah, they've not specified that, so unfortunately with that one I'm not able to give you any more info. It's not something I've heard, so I guess it needs, the version may need.
Yeah, and it's certainly one of those ones that it's difficult to answer without having a one-to-one conversation, I think, to find out exactly what sort of system it is. Okay,
so with this one, what we'll do is, again, obviously we'll share those web links out, and then if anyone needs to sort of ask anything more on a one-to-one basis, then you've got that opportunity to follow up. Okay, brilliant. This one is, I think I might start with Sharaz, if that's okay, and then open it out to everyone else. So I'm supporting the child whose vision has begun to deteriorate. What tech is available? So obviously, Sharaz, if it's okay if we start with you, maybe some of the things that you do in your practice in the work you do?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a difficult question to answer if you don't know the child, but in general, I think one of the first things you'd be trying to do is trying to do a technology assessment to see, what the level of vision the child has, and then what technology is available to support them. I think it also varies from local authority to local authority, as in how the funding works as well, and whether school supplies equipment or the local authority supplies equipment. So I think the first thing you'll be doing is, looking at a functional vision assessment, looking at how well they're using the vision. And then if you have a technology officer, if they can carry an assessment locally as well, and then see what technology they have that would match their needs in school.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks, Shiraz. Martin, anything you would like to add at all?
I think that Shiraz is started on the right point, really. I would say if you're looking for technology for any student, whether you're especially if you are losing your vision, there's a lot to choose from, but it's important that you look at as much as you possibly can. I know it can get bewildering, but informed choices are often the best choices, and even they're not always right. But so firstly, I'd say look at whatever you can. If a student is, for example, getting to the stage where some kind of handheld magnifier isn't good enough, then maybe it could be a choice of something that sits on the desk or some kind of tablet-based solution. So it really does. It depends so much on the individual, and I hate putting people into boxes and saying, okay, we've got a blind student, they will use. I'm a braille champion, but I don't think that every blind student should necessarily use braille. I think it's very important, but if there's a student who's completely against it, then fine. But I think everyone's different, and I don't know what you say about that, Stuart.
Yeah, I would probably add a little bit in there that often when a child begins to lose the vision, people or staff or other professionals often think that throwing technology will solve the problem straight away, but it's actually kind of a very long journey that sometimes you're trialing a piece of equipment and then you're removing it and then you're trialing something else. And often what you don't want to do is put a piece of technology in that actually becomes a barrier to other children working with the VI child as well. And it could be a large CCTV, and then it's almost you're isolating them on a separate table because the technology is taking all the tables. So there's a lot of factors to consider in this.
I think one of the other things, and I completely go along with what the guys have said there, is that kids don't want to look different, don't want to appear different, don't want to seem different, and sometimes technology screams that you're different. So it has to be done very delicately. I think so much is going to kind of depend on the situation and the environment. And also, I suppose there's a lot of scope nowadays in looking at mainstream tech and accessibility options within mainstream tech, especially for people with low vision and for totally blind, I suppose, as well, and working out how mainstream and specialist tech can connect. And that's the really exciting thing about the time we live in now, I suppose, where mainstream well-known technology vendors have built a lot of this stuff into their systems. So I think it's a good starting point.
Darren, is there anything you'd like to add on that from your perspective with Vital Tech, for example?
I think, well, just to kind of echo a lot of what's been said, to be honest. I think being as informed as possible is ultimately going to really help to kind of make sure that you have access to or that your child has access to whatever tools they need. There is so much out there, and don't be shy about going and approaching. If you find that there's some information available on a site like Vital Tech going forward, if you want to get a hands-on demo of any of the tech that you've read up about or seen, then get in touch with the likes of Sight and Sound and Humanware, or whichever tech company it is that's responsible, because it's in everybody's interest to get demos and hands-on. And often it's only really when you get your hands on the equipment that you're thinking about that you can start to see actually how it's going to work or fit into your study workflow, classroom environment, and all that sort of thing. So yeah, don't be shy about that, I would say. And also don't be intimidated, because there is so much info out there. But ultimately, technology in all of its forms, it's supposed to be there to empower you and to make sure that people can actually get on a little bit better in some sort of way. So yeah, it's sometimes you're dealing with technical things that you might not have seen before, but don't panic.
That's quite a good one, because I think a lot of people can be very put off by technology. So yeah, that whole sort of don't panic and try things, I think, is some great advice. I think one thing that I'd just like to ask, and probably this is Stuart and Martin more so, taking into account we are in a pandemic, how do you actually go about being able to get your hands on and test?
Okay.
Martin, do you want to go first? Or?
Okay, I think it'll differ slightly between companies, and obviously Sight and Sound and Humanware will do things slightly differently, and other companies, we can't speak for them. So I can only speak for my workplace. So we are sending out, first of all, where there's an area that is low or medium, we are going out still to show students or parents or whoever's interested the equipment. We use full PPE protection and lots of common sense, and sterilize and wipe down equipment. It's very important, especially with braille. The second thing is, if that's not appropriate for the school or the parent, we are sending equipment out for someone to take a look at, and we'll then do a virtual Zoom call or a Teams or Meet or whatever they want to do with that. We try and help them and do a demonstration when they've got the equipment physically with them. And the last thing that we've done is we've extended we've also had a 30-day money back, but we've extended this now to 45 days, which I think is quite good, really. So it gives someone, in case of that rush decision, because, I've worked in the industry a long time, and I don't like seeing people make rush decisions. I know it's sometimes inevitable that you have to if maybe you've got a new job or something, but we've extended our 45 no quibble money back. Well, we've extended 30 days to 45. So that's what we're doing at Humanware, and I'm sure Sight and Sound have got some plans as well.
Yeah, very similar to what Humanware are doing, actually. So yeah, again, where it is safe for us to do so and where customers are comfortable, we will do home visits or school visits, similar to Humanware, complete with full PPE and sterilization. And yeah, we have also sent technology to people where either we can't do a visit or where people are not comfortable, and again, doing the online consultations on Zoom or Teams or whatever people want. And that's been really interesting, actually, because at the start of all this pandemic, I wasn't sure that bit was going to work, but it actually has. And the feedback we've got from people is that having the technology in their hands with someone on the other end of a line actually was really good. So it's been interesting how I think we've all had to very quickly change the way we've worked over the last couple of months, and in some respects it's actually worked quite well.
In some respects, I think it's changed the way we will work in the future, and and in that you can't do a demo like that over a phone, but when you get the clarity of a decent call and you get visual, you can show pictures and you can share your screen with someone, that's a great thing.
That's Martin. That's nicely timed. We've had a question that's come through. We are about sharing screens. Is there anything you would recommend for mirroring a smartboard? I'm going to open that out to anybody. I don't know whether Shiraz, whether you do anything like that in your.
Yeah, so it varies from school to school. You'll find different network managers saying I prefer VNC, another will say I prefer TeamViewer. There's many out there, and it all depends on what is the preferred option of the school, if I'm honest, and what they're willing to work with. I mean, school will prefer any sort of free version that they can to save costs, which is to be expected and understandable, but there's no real quick fix and easy answer to this. It depends on what the school is willing to work with. And you'll find from school to school, you know, one program will work at one school and for some reason it won't work at another school, or the teachers can't always connect to it, or it drops, or the child can't connect to it. So it really varies from school to school, and it's a case of trying the different programs out there, finding which is the most stable and gives you what you want.
Shiraz, can I put in a small question on the back of that? Because I'm curious as to whether there might be specific situations where a whiteboard mirroring device might be more appropriate than others. For instance, is this the sort of software that at the moment a child with not very much vision at all could actually benefit from, or is this sort of more for partially sighted children at the moment?
I'd say it's more for partially sighted students, and I think what it does, it takes away the advice that the child whose vision impaired sits right in front of the board every single time, whereas if you can mirror it onto an iPad, an iPad Pro, any other sort of device, then they can sit with their group who are their peers or working at their level, and it allows you to differentiate in that way. But you're right in asking the question, is it for those children with useful sight? And yes, I'd agree, it's for those children with a certain level of useful sight, that even if it means they can pinch and zoom in, they can still get, you know, gather a reasonable amount of information.
Just say we came across just a couple of ones. People have talked about TeamViewer. There's one as well called Bliss or Blizz, I think, which I think is made by TeamViewer as well, and VNC, of course, and then within the Android device itself, the screen mirroring from within the Android settings on these devices works quite well too, and you can mirror the sound as well, I think. So there's a few options.
Thanks everybody. I've got one here. I think this is probably more for Stacey. So Stacey, where can I find virtual copies of textbooks?
So as I mentioned in my introduction, one of the things I do for RNIB is I help to run our RNIB Bookshare service. So RNIB Bookshare is our UK education collections, and it currently has about 605,000 books available to anyone studying, and it's absolutely free. So the way that it works is any educational institution can sign up to RNIB Bookshare. So that can be a nursery, primary school, secondary, university, college, adult education, learning centre, anything that is an educational organisation. They can then add staff and add students so that they can access and download any of those books. And the books are available in a variety of different formats. So we have PDFs and we have what we call EPUBs. And the EPUBs can be downloaded in a variety of different accessible forms. So, for example, Microsoft Word, DAISY Audio, DAISY Text, and braille.brf files. So it's in addition to that, we also have described and tactile image collection, which has about 3,000 images in it at the moment, and we're working with some partners to increase that as well. The book collection grows every day, so I think this time last year we had about half the number of books that we do. So it's very typical that you would find the book that you need, but if you can't, we also offer a book request feature on RNIB Bookshare. So if you can't find the book you need, you can put a request into my team who'll contact the publisher on your behalf. We have teamed up with Dolphin to make RNIB Bookshare available on a variety of platforms through the Easy Reader app. And basically, this is an app that you can download to your phone, be it iPhone or Android, your tablet, iPad, all of those sorts of things, so that you can access a number of different libraries, one of which being the RNIB Bookshare collection. And it's a wonderful app actually, because it's really accessible, it's really easy to use, which I like. And it goes in your pocket. And again, going back to a point that Stuart made earlier, it's one of these things that actually you can be sitting in class with access to over 600,000 books, and you can be doing it on your iPad. So if discretion is important, and for some children it is, I know for me it was when I was growing up with a visual impairment, then actually it makes a huge difference as well, being able to have that on your phone or your tablet. Not that I think teachers allow you to have your phone out in class, I'm sure they don't. So maybe the iPad is the way to go for the Easy Reader app. But there's definitely a lot of available books in that collection, and that covers everything from, you know, education texts straight through to fictional content as well. So there's a lot to be taken from that. But of course, I'm biased. I'm talking about RNIB Bookshare, but there is of course other resources out there that you can access as well. I know Guide Dogs have a large print book service. We have living paintings as well, which do a lot around described and tactile images. So there's some wonderful resources out there, and I would encourage anyone to really have a look at that. And obviously, I would really encourage anyone to join RNIB Bookshare as well.
Thanks, Stacey. I'm going to go on. We've got another question, and I think this one's probably sort of aimed at quite a few people. Maybe Sharaz, this might be aimed at you primarily. So is anyone aware of any learning resources or materials specifically aimed towards teachers relating to how best to adapt their techniques or methods in order to cater for a VI student within a mainstream classroom environment? Now, I know obviously, you know, we're going to have to sort of answer quite generally on this one, as in like with quite a few of the questions, but if there's anything that you can Shiraz, that would be great.
I mean, often the role of the QTVI is to support the mainstream class teacher and work on developing a style of teaching that is really conducive to the learning of a visually impaired child, and a lot of that is around language and description, and, you know, giving them an experience at the point of description. As my old university tutor used to say, if you're talking about something physical that's out there in the world, then give them the physical object. You know, don't be general, like over there, here. You know, it's all about being specific. And often I used to say to teachers, you know, you need to imagine that when you're on the radio and you're listening to somebody commentate on football, they're building a picture for you, and it's almost that the class teacher needs to try and do that. So I'm assuming that the child has little or no vision here, and really, you know, if they are struggling, then the QTVI locally would come and offer the support around teaching styles and strategies and how they could support the learner who's got a vision impairment.
Thanks,
Emma,
Shiraz.
could I just add to that as well? So RNIB have recently launched what they're calling the VI curriculum project, and essentially it's in place for I think the next year to year and a half, and it's looking at the whole curriculum from a visually impaired child's perspective. So we're about to launch some materials on that. So I would definitely keep an eye out for that. But as part of that, we are developing what we call the Professionals Hub. And the aim of that hub will be to store a bank of resources that would be helpful to anyone working with children with visual impairments. So that can be, you know, research, it can be resources, help guides, teaching aids, all of that sort of stuff. And the aim is to have it in one centralized place so that everyone knows where they can go to find the support that they need. And certainly going forward, you know, we'd love to have anybody's input in that, even in terms of any materials or you know, a vision on how that should be structured, because it should be built, I would say, 2021 to 22.
Thanks, Stacey. And Stacey, I've got a question here. So I think this came through when you were talking about RNIB Bookshare. So there's a very strong need for standard WJEC revision books to be made available via Bookshare, including not via so that a brailleist can access. Could these please be provided via? Bookshare?
But it's a great question. So the revision guides, genuinely, it has me and my colleagues absolutely pulling our hair out because they are not accessible. They haven't been accessible, and it is absolutely unbelievable. So just before COVID, we'd actually written a project proposal so that we could look at sorting this. Basically, what we wanted to do was to hire a member of staff whose job it would be to make revision guides accessible, and then of course they would be available on RNIB Bookshare and to anyone who needed them. COVID came along, and like it did with so many other things, completely derailed the whole project and us basically getting the funding to do that. However, it is still one of my, I'd probably put it in my top 5 bugbears in terms of access to education, and I certainly know that's true of my colleague in the Children, Young People and Families team as well. So I promise we are, that is a key thing for us, and we are working on it, and that is one of the things that we would love to see developed in the not too distant future, is accessible revision guides, because I absolutely agree that they need to be available and accessible.
Shiraz, I'm guessing I saw you nodding your head there. I think that's obviously something that
it's
from your end.
Yeah, I mean, it's often a question that schools ask around supporting them with revision guides, because a revision guide, if for those of us that have vision, when you look at it, it's got boxes, text boxes, colors are highlighted, different fonts, arrows, and it's just a nightmare for anybody to scan it, pick out the text, modify it, then decide what order it goes in so the child's not getting the wrong information, the formulas before the text. So I think that'd be a great initiative, because students who are going into GCSEs or revision who are visually impaired really do miss out on having adequate revision material.
It's just a nightmare. I mean, even if you get a PDF of the document, it's still a nightmare to get the text in a useful way out of it. You can get the text out of it, but getting those tables, getting those underlining, those font changes with a PDF that wasn't designed to be accessible generally can just be a dispiriting experience. I've tried.
Yeah, absolutely. I want just one thing to add that might be quite useful onto this. So RNIB have recently sort of altered their transcription service so that they're able to take requests for pretty much any form of transcription that's needed. So that can be transcribing a book into braille, but it can also be taking something like a revision guide and making it accessible, and that would be done on an individual basis. Now that service is chargeable, unfortunately, and it would very much depend on the amount of work that would go into it. But I just wanted to put it out there as an option. It's not the most ideal option, I completely agree. The most ideal thing would be what I'm pushing for, which is we have somebody who makes these accessible to everybody at no cost. Or the other idea would be that the Department for Education gives us lots of money to do the things we need to do. But maybe we'll leave that ideal there. But yes, so please do look at the RNIB transcription service. I actually have a leaflet about it that I don't. Emma, are we able to send that round at the end at some point if anyone wants it?
Yeah, Stacey, if you want to send that over to me, and then we can share it with people.
I'll do that, because as I say, it's an option, and it is one that people use, and it's there until we get something better.
Thank you. One of the questions that's actually come through is there used to be a piece of equipment, I think it was called a T3, that allowed multi-layered information. Is there anything more up to date as this became obsolete? This was great, for example, teaching certain topics such as planets or the periodic table.
I haven't heard of anything to replace that. That was developed at the Royal College for the Blind in Hereford. It was a great device, and I think it came from a European project at the time, and it didn't continue, and it was really good. I'm not aware of something as sophisticated as what that did at the time, when you could have these overlays that you loaded into the device. Obviously, there's tactile image devices like the Zycam machine. But I'm not aware. There could be something, again, the American Printing House of the Blind. If anyone's doing something in this space, they may be. I don't know if Martin might have anything else to add to that.
No, I don't know anything that's replacing it. Zycam would have been the nearest, I think, but I don't know anything about multi-layered information, because it was great, and I guess it's like one of those great ideas that didn't really take off, like the Opticon or something, that we just all say, can we get it back, please? I suppose. So yeah, sorry.
Okay, thank you. Sorry we weren't able to help more with that one. This one, again, this is obviously very general. Is there any particular technologies or equipment that you've come across that provides consistently positive with early years children diagnosed with a CVI, or diagnosed with CVI? So again, I think that's quite a that's a general one, really.
I'd say a drum kit. Sorry, I mean, I'm being slightly facetious, but yeah, I think every child's different, and something that makes lots of noise. That's what I liked when I was a kid anyway. But
I think, it's going back to what we said earlier about, you're never too young to get hands-on. And so I would say, if you're a parent and you're happy with it, let your little one play with your iPhone. Let them get hands-on, let them get used to touching and swiping, put voiceover on, let them hear what it does when they move their fingers across the screen. You can actually put help mode on as well, so that they're able to make different gestures and it won't, ring your husband or your parents and things like that. And so letting them get hands-on with it, with anything as early as possible. And we've had, when we were giving away the Orbit Braille readers, we actually had quite a few requests from parents who had children that were 3 and 4 years old, because they wanted to have their children get used to the feel of Braille, of electronic Braille, and using these machines even from the age of 3. And it was very successful doing that. So yeah, I'd say get your iPhone out or your Android and have a play.
I would add to everything that Stacey has said, and Martin with his drum kit as well. It's very good. But I also just wanted to mention, we've been looking at a product that's come out of Slovenia. It's called the Felif tablet. That's F-E-E-L-I-F. And it's a Samsung tablet with a tactile overlay. And it's designed really to be an education device, an educational and leisure device, I suppose, for children. So there's games on it, and there's all sorts of things that allow you to explore sound and explore touch. It's an interesting device, probably still getting some of the little cogs worked out of it. But it might be one to just watch and keep an eye on. And again, if anyone is interested, I'm happy to provide more feedback on that.
That would be great, Stuart. That sounds really interesting.
Thank you. It's okay if we move to the next question. I'm just mindful we're it's at 7:15, so we're whizzing through. We've had quite a few questions come in. So this one is for Sharaz. So Sharaz, can you discuss further who is responsible for funding specialist equipment at school? Is it the local authority of the school? Now, obviously, again, this is going to be very general because we don't know the situation of the child or anything like that. So, Shiraz, if you're able to kind of provide a sort of general answer, that would be great, please.
Yeah, sure. When we mention the word specialist, what we're often referring to is specialist equipment that without the child having it in school, they would not be able to access their education, and also it is not part of mainstream technology. So what we're talking about is a braille sensor, braille note, a brailliant, anything that involves braille, and also anything that would produce braille, like an embosser or specialist software that exists out there. Now, often what you find is local authorities will fund this specialist equipment for a child, But what we're seeing more and more, and what I've seen more and more is, let's say it's a piece of technology that doesn't go past, let's use a figure of £1,000. Often local authorities will look to the school to do that outlay first. If it then becomes a significant piece of equipment that costs thousands of pounds, schools are often requesting that the local authority fund that, and that often is the case, that the local authority then funds that equipment.
Thanks, Shiraz. We had another question. Just bear with me. And again, this is sort of a way you'll have to sort of answer this quite generally. So is the school or the local authority ultimately responsible for providing equipment, and can the equipment obtained be used at home? Now, we know that there are obviously various examples where some children can use it at home, some can't. But if you're able to give a sort of general answer, that'd be great, Sharaz. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, once again, it varies from local authority to local authority. And in certain schools where it's a resource provision or the school is funding the equipment, then it's a home school agreement or a local authority home agreement. And these do exist in places where if you've got a child doing GCSEs who's working using electronic piece of equipment that contains all their braille, you're going to say to them they can't take that equipment home to do revision. So there's an element of trust here. And what I'd say to parents who are asking these questions, if you need further support around this, then we'd need to know more details about what's going on, and then probably give the Guide Dogs helpline a call and try and speak to one of the special education support officers to give you further support and answer questions in a more detailed way.
Yeah, it's a very interesting area, and one that I've seen students in the lockdown and they're not been able to bring the braille technology home, and sometimes it could be that the LEA authority wants some insurance. Maybe the parents can insure the equipment. That can sometimes be a way to get around a reluctant school, but often it's the QTVIs want the stuff to be at home. I'd just say in lots of cases there needs to be dialogue, and sometimes it can just take getting some insurance on that specialist equipment to make it happen.
Yeah, I'd agree with Martin, and I would also say that one of the things that was the sadder things that we've seen over COVID is that where schools were closed and where students were unable to take that technology home, they had 6 months, without using it. And certainly we've seen a couple of impacts of that already with certain people that we've been working with. So yeah, I think it's a conversation that needs to happen.
Yeah, we did a survey with Guide Dogs at the beginning of lockdown, and some of the questions we asked were very much about this. What were people able to take their equipment home? We found that in some places they could take it home, but they were struggling to use it at home. Their parents maybe didn't feel quite as confident in supporting them to use it. So yeah, quite a lot of issues with children. And then also now, if we're looking at some sort of local lockdowns, building and stuff, it's an ongoing problem.
I'd always say, the QTVI is doing an amazing job. I've got to say, because my wife is one, but they do genuinely do a fantastic job. But there's often a reluctance for people to come back to the people like myself and Stuart and say, hey, we're having problems, can you help this student out? And we will do that. We will spend time on the phone over Zoom helping out these students who are at home. We want to do that. Years down the line, myself and Stuart don't want to see people who are visually impaired, whether they're low vision or no vision, failing because of the technology. Not at all.
Thanks. And I think that was part of our sort of rationale today, was to kind of get people to ask some questions and also know where they could go for some support. So yeah, so it's great to hear, Martin, that obviously both you and Stuart are available to help.
Definitely.
We've still got a little bit of time left. So another question we've got This is about maths. So is there specific technology that will help math students in particular, apart from using accessibility functions on laptops and tablets? So I'm going to open that to anybody. Maybe Darren, I don't know if you've got anything you want to start off with.
Oh, that is a huge question. I can only really speak from my own experience here. I am also totally blind, and when I was going through the school system, which I'm afraid was rather longer ago than I would care to admit, actually using and learning maths braille was critical, but it was good enough for me to at least attempt a maths A level. I can't really say that much more than that, because it certainly wasn't my best A level, but that was nothing to do with the support that was available. Actually getting tactile access to braille equations and diagrams and simple things like cork boards for graphs, and it was all really useful for me, but this is so huge because it will completely come back to the point we've already covered, that it just depends on needs, I would think.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I actually, so I'm completely blind, and I actually did a maths degree, and I was one of the ones who wasn't intelligent enough to learn Braille to help me with that maths degree, and I wish I had, because that would have made it much easier. But the way I did it was again, I'm going back to my hands-on thing. I did a course called Graph Theory, and I turned up to the exam with plasticine and coins and beads and pipe cleaners, and everyone was looking like, where on earth do you think you are? But it allowed me to actually create my own graphs that that then could be put onto paper and things like that. So even the most simplistic solutions can actually be solutions regardless of what level you're at. There is, of course, technology is advancing all the time. There are companies like Benetech who are working on math solutions, and many others as well. And it is coming. We've seen improvements. We're getting to the stage where you can actually input and read formula from your laptop, but it is so visual and it is difficult. So I think getting your hands on as many described and tactile images, keeping in contact with people who've also done it. There are people with backgrounds in maths and science who I think that's quite a small network, but it's a network of people who would be more than willing to help and share their expertise. So definitely tapping into that, being online in some of the Facebook groups and Twitter pages and stuff, like VI Talk, and making sure that you're asking questions and connecting to the people that have had experiences in that. We also talked earlier about the Canute, and I think Stuart, you mentioned it's the idea of being able to spatially work out if you're doing an equation, doing it on one line is near impossible. So things like the Canute, I think, will certainly help with that as well.
It's interesting, when we delivered, I remember being in a school about 2 years ago, putting a Braille note taker in the school, and we were doing some training with the teachers, and showed it to the student who was about 11 at the time. And the teacher said to her, now you can get rid of the Perkins. And I said, no, you can't get rid of the Perkins. You'll always have the Perkins. And I think maths is a classic example where it's this, I think, the answer is creativity and sitting down and working out. And unfortunately, it's one of those things, it's an ongoing issue, isn't it? People find maths just challenging, and you do have to do some thinking and solution problem. And as Stacey says, screen readers are getting better at being able to read mathematical formulas. There's lots of work being done around MathML with screen reader compatibility. So it is getting better, but it requires a lot of time and a lot of joined up thinking with lots of different people who are there to support the student, as well, of course, as centrally the student themselves.
Yeah, and I think also just not being scared off by it as well. I mean, I certainly from my experience, there was a lot of, you know, I went into the you know, my first maths lecture, it was an accident. I was supposed to be going into somewhere else and I ended up there, and I was very excited about it. And I went up to the tutor and I said, oh, I'd love to join this course. And, you know, and they said, oh, no, absolutely not. That would be ridiculous because you're blind. And it sort of deflated me a little bit. And then, you know, we had to have a chat about that. And I think that made me want to do it more. But, you know, there was certainly a number of occasions where, you know, these barriers were put up and it was very much like, oh, of course not, because you can't see. And I think making sure that we don't have that sort of, you know, negative view actually does take us a long way. And sitting down and saying, so, you know, what can we do? How, you know, what solutions can we implement here, rather than, oh, it's just too visual, so we need to find a way around it. Let's not find a way around it. Let's find a way to do it.
Thanks everybody. So we've got 4 minutes left, and we've got quite a lot of questions, and we're not going to be able to get through all these questions that have just come through. This is actually just a bit of feedback. This is from Humanware. The Buddy app has been great for assisting young people and families at home during lockdown with equipment that was new to them at the start of lockdown that was allowed to go home. So I thought I'd just share a bit of feedback there for you, Martin. So this one, and again, obviously this is going to be quite general. I think, Sharaz, if we go to you, does anyone have experience of VI pupils accessing Google Classroom from home? This is being proposed at the portal for future learning as and when next lockdown happens. So Shiraz, I know it's obviously very general, but...
Yeah, unfortunately, I haven't come across Google Classroom, so I couldn't really answer that question, how it's going to work with VoiceOver, JAWS or NVDA, sorry.
I think, can I just say quickly, we do, if you go onto the Humanware webinar, if you go onto our YouTube channel, we have some webinars on using it with our BrailleNote Touch. Yeah. So if it's a BrailleNote user, we can use it.
Yeah, and there is something similar for the BrailleSense Polaris, and I know I've talked to I think Google Classroom is one of these web interfaces that is changing very rapidly.
All the time.
More people have been using it, so it's very difficult to sort of give specifics today, and in maybe 2 weeks' time somebody will log on and something changes. But I know the general experience with Chrome, with JAWS, and you know, it has been pretty good. NVDA as well. So I think it's just a matter of working out the tasks you need to do at any time.
It's a moving goalpost, though. You know.
It is, yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned NVDA, Stuart. So with free screen readers such as NVDA, are JAWS and Supernova becoming obsolete, or should students still be introduced to them? We don't have very long left.
I'm just going to say this with a health warning, saying that obviously Sight and Sound are the primary JAWS reseller, but I suppose I will give my own kind of personal view as well. I think anything free is great, and NVDA is a wonderful screen reader, there's no doubt. But the reality is that most workplaces, most corporates won't touch it because it's open source. And we want our blind students to be employed and to be working in the future. So the short answer is yes, JAWS and Supernova very much have a place, because unfortunately, sadly, NVDA won't be on the big corporates.
That's the narrator doesn't cut it yet.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
that's where we are.
I'm really sorry. So we're at 29 minutes past. So I think we're pretty much there, because when it finishes, it finishes. So I'd just like to take this opportunity to say thank you to all the panelists, Darren, Shiraz, Stuart, Martin, Stacey, for your expert knowledge and answers today. It's just been really great. And then obviously for everyone that's attended today, I hope you found it really helpful. If there is anything you want to sort of ask, you can contact us at cypf@pocklington-trust.org.uk, and we'll obviously be sending out resources and the video once it's all finished. So yeah, thanks again. Thanks for giving up your time this evening to join the session. So it's been great to meet you all.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Thank you. Thanks.
Oh dear.